was in DRDO.
Yeah. It is good. You have taken over this topic. Good topic. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Microphone. Without this track, I'll just take.
Okay, we're live on YouTube. And I'm going to start the broadcast now. There's a bit of background noise, so if I might mute some of you otherwise. I think, Jacob, there might be... Yeah.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Okay. So we should be live now. And we are. Okay. I'm just going to mute some of our panelists. Raman, I'll keep you on. And AVM Ashwani, I'm just going to mute you too. Okay, so we'll get going. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Indo-Pacific series, Aerospace, Defence and Security Technology Market Trends, Opportunities for India, Australia and the ASEAN region. My name is Chris Cubbage. I'm the Executive Editor and Director for My Security Media, and we hold this series in partnership with the Aerospace and Defence Consultants Association of India and our co-host, Raman Sapori in Delhi. Raman, thank you very much for joining us once again, episode number 5. So we're just going to walk through the domain focus, as I'm sure our audience is aware. We cover aerospace and space, defence and national security, cyber security and critical technology, and cities and infrastructure. This particular episode is covering off on cities and infrastructure, and we're going to be covering off on drones and anti-drone technology. The sessions are recorded. They are also live on YouTube. If you have questions, please, you can raise your hand or just ask a question in the chat in the GoToWebinar platform there, and I will moderate throughout this session. We are going to hear from Dr Vastuva, who we were just saying has joined us from episode 1 some couple of months ago now, and but just before we do, I'm going to have Raman do an introduction to Dr Vastuva and then also introduce the panel. Raman, are you okay to do an introduction?
Thank you, Chris. My pleasure to introduce Dr Vasudeva, who doesn't actually need any introduction. He is a distinguished scientist of DRDO, head of the Chief Controller Department, and he's got a lot of innovative intellectual capital still with him. He works in a office of Dr. Vijay Raghavan, who's in the Prime Minister's Strategic Thought Leadership Committee. Dr. Vasudeva, welcome to you, and we will always be guided by your knowledge. Dr. Vasudeva also is the first distinguished fellow of Aerospace Defence Consultants Association, and we will have the opening remarks by Dr. Vasudeva. I also welcome Air Marshal Daljit Singh, who's there in the screen. Air Marshal is the Director General Air Ops. He's a fighter pilot and has got first-hand experience of flying in the air, the new threat perceptions also. We will have a presentation by Dr. Nagendra Babu, who is a DRDO scientist and now an entrepreneur working in new initiatives on the radar and drones. Today he'll be doing a presentation on this. We will have expert comments by Mr. Jacob Klain from Tel Aviv. Welcome, Mr. Jacob. We will have expert comments by 2 of the panelists, Air Vice Marshal Nabh, who was the ex-advisor to Bharat Electronics Limited India, and of course my friend Group Captain Vikram Chauhan. Vikram Chauhan has been putting on 3 hats. He was the ex expert in the procurement in Hindustan Aeronautics in the various assignments. Now he's back as a flying in the civil aerospace in Indigo. He's also a certified drone test.
Hand over to you, Dr. Vastuva, just for some opening remarks, and your slide will come back up. Sorry, I just skipped over those slides before. So next week, we're going to be covering on cybersecurity collaboration, I beg your pardon, particularly on skills development, OT threat landscape, and critical infrastructure supply chains with Hytran, CEO for the Australian Cyber Collaboration Centre, Andrew Ginter, VP Industrial Security for Waterfall Security Solutions in Canada, and Vikram, the Senior Threat Intelligence Analyst in Singapore with Group IB. So looking forward to that one, and we may yet have one or two other panellists. Last week, a very successful session on space tech and leading trends. Some great insights from India, Japan and Australia that is available on YouTube. And the other episodes so far are also available. Just for some news of the week, India-Japan signed a defence logistics support agreement that was sent in from Raman, and also the first Australia-India-France trilateral dialogue was held, I believe, well, it was online, a video conference on the 9th of September with the defence secretaries from each of their respective countries. So interesting that that's the first one with India, Australia and France. Lockheed Martin with their F-35 5th gen technols on the F-21 has been offered to India. This would be potentially the world's largest order for Lockheed Martin for the Indian Air Force for the F-35 Lightning II and the F-22 Raptor. So some new information there for Lockheed Martin. This just came in today, and I don't have a source on the website, I'm sorry, but the F-16 simulation... just one second. And the use of artificial intelligence on the F-16 and some drones there. So interesting developments on military AI taking over from the piloted aircraft. Kleos, some more news out of Kleos. Kleos Space Scouting Mission has been scheduled for November 2020. That also looks at the Indian sector. And I'm just getting some background. Hang on, I'm just going to have to mute that. 1 second, I beg your pardon. So this is related to the Indian Space Research Organisation's PSLV C-49 mission from the Satish Dhawan Space Centre in... I apologise for my pronunciations here, Sri Harikota range in India. So that's on the first half of November. And Drone Shield, an Australian listed company, has received more funding from the United States Department of Defence. It is a new contract with a new section of Department of Defence for Drone Shield. We did invite Drone Shield on, and we may yet have them on into the future. And so hopefully into not too distant in one of our episodes. This was headed up our newsletter this morning. Chinese investment has almost halved here in Australia the last couple of years. Obviously there's implications here for Australia's national security and the relationships between Australia and China is not well politically. So definitely something to be monitoring at the moment. There's a lot of chatter in Australia about the China and India relationship. And also we've had Shinzo Abe has resigned for health reasons in Japan. This article from the Bisa Centre based in Israel has written an interesting article on what the next Japan Prime Minister will be faced with. That is on the Asia-Pacific Security Magazine website if you wanted to have a read. But obviously Japan-China, Japan-Korea relations and obviously Japan-US relations are forefront. And Raman, you just flicked this through on LinkedIn just prior to coming on air. Ashok Sutta, a 77-year-old founder, getting his IPOs oversubscribed. Do you happen to know Mr. Sutta?
Yes, Mr. Sutta is the original investor of India's Wipro Technologies, where I was also member of the group as first defense advisor. Ashok Sutta is known for his innovative, and this particular news came in the last week that he is only 77-year-old young, and the recent IPO has been oversubscribed 151 times. That means for Indian innovative capital, age is no bar, money is no bar. You just have to have trust in yourself, and money will come in. So this is a live example of India being the next, startup capital of the world. Over to you, Dr. Chris.
Not a doctor there, Raman, but thank you very much. So look, it is encouraging at 77 still to be doing IPOs, but also focused on digital, as you mentioned. So that's pretty much it for the kind of the weekly wrap up and the news. Just some key events that we're promoting. 3D Printing World 2020 is on the 5th and 6th of December, building opportunities in the challenging times of COVID pandemic. We also have the Top Women in Security in Malaysia nominations are open on the ASEANTechSec.com website. We are partnered with the Australia-Israel Chamber of Commerce, WA, which is running an event on the 30th of September, looking at the experts' view on global venture capital investment in COVID-19 environments, particularly there with Aaron Gershenberg, who's the chairman and founder of Silicon Valley Bank Capital's Fund of Funds and Direct Funds, a $3 billion fund under management there. So that is on the 30th of September with our partner AICC, and because it's virtual, you can attend from wherever you are. A couple of podcasts that we dropped this week. One is with Cisco Systems out of Singapore, with an interview with Joshua McLeod, National Cybersecurity Officer for Cisco, with Jane Lowe, our Singapore correspondent, and also interviewed Tim Watts MP, the Shadow Assistant Minister here in Australia for cybersecurity, and a new a cyber power index from Harvard Balfour Centre, and where Australia is ranking 8th on its cybersecurity intention, but it's only ranking at 16th in terms of its capability, and I'm sure India is on there too. So it's an interesting index to have a look at in terms of what countries are saying about their cybersecurity capabilities, what they're saying about their intention, but there's a big gap between their capability. So on that note, we're going to move on to our panel just for the audience and obviously our Indian partners as well. We do cover drones and robotics as well as space and other sort of technologies in DRASTIC. DRASTIC stands for Drones, Robotics, Automated Systems, Technology, Intelligence and Communications. So that's drasticnews.com. Just put in drones and all the drones related stories will come up for you. And I'm going to hand over to you, Raman, to hand over to Mr. Dr. Vastuva. Just one moment.
Welcome, Dr. Vasudeva. If you can give us the insight on your opening remarks and opening keynote address.
Okay. Thank you, Chris and Raman Spori for inviting me to this drones and anti-drone technology. Raman knows that I was associated with the young guys to whom I have helped in setting up the drones making company. They were a startup, and now they have come up very well. And we are making this company is called Myelin Innovations. So they are making the drones which can lift up to 15 to 20 kilograms. So they have come up very well, and we are making the drones. Now, often on the question is coming, a lot of drones are in the market now coming from various sources. They are coming made by Indian entrepreneurs as well as from the other sources. The problem which we are facing is that of course, some rules and regulations have recently been framed by our Ministry, Civil Aviation. The problem which we are facing is how to tame the drones. If we have to see that, you see the problem is there, a lot of drones are flying here and there. So anti-drone technology has gained the importance. Now if we see, there are about 300 to 400 manufacturers all over the world who are making different kind of drones, starting from the small to the big size drones. And to capture the drone is a bit of problem. First, you have to define the threat level, which type of the threat level you are going to face with such type of drones. And in the case of smaller drone, it becomes still a problem because of the radar signatures. You have to look for the various technologies which can be used for the anti-drone. Now, various technologies and tracking are your radar, RF, and then you have electro-optical, then IR, acoustic, then combined sensors platforms. And for the introduction, we can do by RF jamming or GNSS jamming, spoofing, laser nets, and then projectile combined introduction elements we can put. And then the platform can either be ground-based or it can be handheld or based on the UAV-based. Now, so far, we have not been able to, of course, many countries are working on this. Even people have tried the eagles, they have trained the eagles to capture the drones. This is one of the latest they have tried. And they have been able to capture the small drones like this. But this is a very burning problem. I am very happy that you are going to address this topic. And I can tell you, it is not very easy to intercept the drone. It is very difficult. But some or the other, the technology is available. So we can definitely capture the drone right from the smallest size to the biggest size. So it is good that we are addressing this issue. And I wish all the best to the participant and the panelists. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Now, Rahman, we're going to hand over to the panel. We have introduced, just one moment, sorry, my system's just jumping around a little bit. We're going to hear from Air Marshal Daljit Singh. Air Marshal, I think if we can just get some opening comments from yourself as well in terms of the panel and the drones and anti-drones. I suppose they do come together, and obviously we do have a sort of slight lean towards aerospace defence and security on this panel rather than recreational related drones. So our subject matter is obviously aerospace defence and security related drone technology. Over to you, Air Marshal.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chris, for introducing me and inviting me for this panel. Dear panelists, ladies and gentlemen, the scope of the topic of drones and counter-drone technology is indeed very vast, and there has been tremendous progress in development and operational exploitation of these systems. Therefore, without much ado, I will dip into the subject discussion straight away. My intention is to give you an overview of how the drone technology conceived, where it is standing today, and what we are looking at into the future. And I will cover some conveys of the Indian drone industry and its operationalization. Firstly, to give you a glimpse of the historical background, the concept of drone employment for reconnaissance started with the Israel Air Force using toy aeroplanes, especially during the Six-Day War, which occurred in 1967. And in July 1969, a camera strapped on the remote control toy aeroplane with rubber bands and brought back pictures along the Egyptian side of Suez Canal. It took a day to develop this films, and the result was outstanding. However, the IDF wanted something more capable with real-time inputs, and the ground forces lost interest in the project till they were surprised on October 6, 1973, when the Egyptian forces carried out a surprise attack through Sinai Peninsula. The Israelis were unaware of the buildup and they lost 2,500 soldiers, even though ultimately they won the war. After this, the program to make an operationally capable drone was revived, and the first Scout UAV was handed over to the IDF in October 1980. And we know how well the IDF exploited UAVs during the first Lebanon War of 1982. They helped in locating and destroying the SAM sites. The whole world took note of the drone operations, and US imported some UAVs from Israel, did their further research and development, and General Atomics produced MQ-1 Predator in late 1990s. And of course, later, the more advanced, the Reaper came in. These UAVs were good for reconnaissance and surveillance operations in a benign operational environment. They were vulnerable to hostile air threat. We know that the Global Hawk is claimed to have been shot down by the Iran forces, and also the 170 Sentinel UAV was spoofed to land in Iran. This is when development of more capable UAVs with stealth features and self-protection suite started evolving. Presently, the UAVs are being developed parallelly along with the 6th generation fighters, as their capabilities and exploitation would be same as the manned fighters. They would have internal base and capability to fly in unregulated and uncontrolled airspace. Their performance and capabilities would match those of the manned fighters and may even exceed them. Few examples. Boeing Australia has recently presented a loyal wingman jet-powered UAV that will team up with the fighters and undertake all missions of reconnaissance, surveillance, electronic warfare, target designation, and attack. And this UAV is likely to fly even before the end of this year. Similarly, the USAF has chosen Boeing, Northrop Grumman, and General Atomics to develop AI-enabled wingman Skyborg. In Europe, UK and France have joined to develop UCAS system to be operational by 2025, parallel to a future combat aircraft system. Now, there has been a vast development in technologies, most of them not exclusively to drones, but they have been exploited very well for production and development of drones. The major developments have been in the fields of computer power, net centricity, sensor technologies, that includes radars, IR, EO sensors, SIGINT systems, artificial intelligence, and machine learning. You will hear more about this with my panelists. Now, in addition to military applications, the drones find extensive civil applications. India is fast moving ahead with the infrastructural development. More than 100 smart cities are being developed. There would be probably a separate discussion on this. Road and railways networks are being expanded. This requires extensive use of drones for geomapping, monitoring, and inspections. Recently, drones were employed by state governments to monitor the movement of locusts that were destroying the standing crops in India. Strategic assets like oil pipelines, power generation require monitoring of vast areas. Like many other countries, the regulations on drone operations have led the drone technological developments. Civil aviation requirements for operations of drones have been promulgated with effect from 1st December 2018, which permits drone operations with visual line of sight. There is a requirement to have no permit, no takeoff software embedded in the system, and the drones are required to have detect and avoid capability. The operators are required to obtain clearances from many independent departments. Now, efforts are on to streamline this clearances process and work towards non-visual line of sight operations. However, at present, the regulators want to ensure safe and secure skies. Therefore, all these restrictions in due course of time would get cleared after ensuring safety and security in the skies. Coming to counter-drone technology, following asymmetric warfare, terrorists have started using drones for dropping weapons or using them as aerial explosive devices. This is a worldwide phenomenon. In India, last year, the Pakistan Intelligence Agency employed drones to drop weapons across the Indian borders in Punjab sector. Just last week, Pakistan had employed quadcopters to drop AK-47 rifles, grenades, and GPS receivers in Pir Panjal range of Kashmir. Therefore, counter-drone systems are a necessity to tackle this menace. There has been technical development in the field of radar technology to detect low-speed, low RCS UAVs, multispectral EO/IR sensors, commit systems, and accurate DF capability. For neutralizing the drone's soft kill capabilities like RF jamming, GPS spoofing, hard kill options with employment of lasers, guns, or high-power microwaves have matured to operational levels. In India, the armed forces requirements are large for both UAV and counter-UAV systems. It is important to have the open architecture systems for smooth upgrade and obsolescence management. While the Indian industry may have gained expertise in specific fields of, say, radar technology, comment, or sensor technology, it is important to gain experience in integrating these systems effectively for drone technology. To avoid time delays, collaboration and co-production with the more experienced foreign OEM would get the industry to produce the systems faster in India. However, to encourage the local industry, fixed-wing mini UAVs have been included in the import embargo list issued by the Ministry of Defense in December 2020. And more embargoes are going to be in place in due course of time. Counter UAV systems need to be based on operational environment, as has been brought out by Dr. Vasudeva also. The configuration of systems would have to match the operational scenario and should be adaptable. For example, configuration of counter UAV along the border where surveillance would be round the clock, collateral damage may not be an issue, but identification would be important, would have different requirement from covering an element of national importance where the time duration and area to be covered would be quite different. Collateral damage may not be acceptable, and multiple tiers of security would be in place. Now, due to time considerations, I will leave other issues of Indian drone industry's research and development for other panelists to cover. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ev Marshal. Okay, Dr. Babu, I'm going to hand over to you to share your screen. And should be coming to you now. Beautiful.
Is my screen visible?
We can hear you fine, and we can see your screen. So welcome you to commence.
First of all, I thank Mr. Chris and Raman for giving me this opportunity. I'm glad to speak on this counter-drone technologies today. To go forward, so I'm Dr. Nagendra Babu, Executive Director of Unistring Tech Solutions Private Limited. I was a scientist in DRDO for about 15 years before starting this venture. Just a word on what we do. So we are essentially an electronic warfare company, produce a lot of simulators indigenously. We have about 75 people in the company. What is our relation when it comes to counter-drone technologies? We are essentially, this slide speaks about it. So recently, DRDO has demonstrated a counter-drone system at Delhi, and we are proud to be part of this system. So this speaks like our association with anti-drone technologies. What I'm going to cover today is essentially Dr. Vasudeva and then Marshal Daljit Singh have mentioned about certain aspects of anti-drone technology already. Okay, so I try to cover certain aspects of this thread, essentially what is current and future, slightly towards the technologies, and then what should be the apt solution? So that means when we look at the user perspective, so how do we think about the solution? Some of the salient points have already been covered by Daljit Singh. I'll try to emphasize on certain few more points in the similar lines. And of course, I give a little bit on architecture of these systems, or the solutions rather. And then efforts needed for complete ecosystem to come out with. So how should it be? Okay, so these are certain points that I would like to cover in my presentation. So when it comes to the threats and challenges to understand, I'm not sure because I'm not able to see you
We've
in combination.
that's okay. You've just gone off your main.
That's
That's better.
Yeah. So now, what we need to understand is, drone threats are in multiple sizes. So because drone is not an object with a fixed or maybe a moderate size, so you will have the drones spanning from 4-5 meters, 10 meters to the span of few meters. But each one of them are equally likely can create the damage. Okay, so if the bigger ones can do reconnaissance and then the other operations effectively, the smaller rogue ones can do high collateral damage in terms of carrying explosives. So this is one aspect. So the kind of detection, when I wanted to see with respect to the detection perspective, this is a challenge. Having a system which can detect the biggest to the smallest size. Then they can fly at a very high speed, they can fly at a low speed, they can fly low, they can fly high. So all possible combinations exist. Then again, your detection systems should be able to cover this kind of variations in terms of the ranges, in terms of the speeds, in terms of the altitudes. Then what's happening is like the advances in the communication and then the miniaturization of the systems in the communication, improve data rates, and then adding mobile communications into the systems widely, that means into the drones for their control, is essentially bringing a lot of challenges into the detection systems, especially when we wanted to do a detection based on RF. So these are the challenges one has to continuously understand and then upgrade the systems to match the improvements that are happening in the drone industry. Of course, in the autonomous capability is another area. So the miniaturization of the systems in the autonomous aspect is also a challenge which counter-drone systems have to address effectively. Then, if you look at the market size, so it's going to be tremendous for the drones. I'm talking about the drone market. As the drone market increases, the meaning of it is that the usage of it is going to be increasing. And by some stats, it says by 2025, India is going to be the third largest commercial drone market. So that means we have to understand the way the operations and the way the drones are being used in order to have a effective counter drone systems. If I see the way the things are going on in India, the ministry is extremely dynamic. So in terms of incorporating the changes, in terms of giving permissions for flights, in terms of coming out with an integrated architecture for understanding the drone operations, controlling the drone operations. In the last 1 or 2 years, extreme changes have been happening. For example, Daljit Singh have mentioned about the drones being used for low-cost fight. And if somebody notices the kind of developments that have happened there, within days, the permissions have been obtained and then the drones started flying. So what does it mean? It means that you have a challenge in terms of detection of the drones and in terms of identifying which is rogue and which is not rogue. So you have to be extremely cautious in terms of detecting and then understanding whether this is a drone with threat or without threat. So these kind of features have to be extremely added to that. So what does it mean? It has a lot of challenges. Probably I'll discuss down the line. So when I wanted to have an effective solution in terms of countering the drones, what I should look at is, okay, so we should aim at having the systems which reduce the false alarms, because when I talk about detection either through RF means or through non-RF means, So the problems are, if I'm talking about the RF, essentially a communication signal I'm trying to pick up. See, the urban environment, but let's say in the rural environments also today, the mobile usability has been increased to great extent, and then there are Wi-Fi networks everywhere. So how do I distinguish between this to the actual? So if I'm trying to employ an RF-based detection system, see, if I'm trying to employ something like a radar-based detection systems, so how do I distinguish between a drone and then a bird or any other object? Okay, and then say still give a right alarm that okay, whatever is being seen is the drone. Then capability to identify the categories, so not only the detection, I should be able to approximately give what kind of drone is this, so that I should try to identify the method against which I can attack it. So, I mean, is it a drone which can carry a high explosive, or is it a drone with a kind of gun on it? So it depends on this threat, on what kind of countermeasure that I'm going to apply against this drone. So providing an accurate information about the drone categorization is also going to be very important. And then capability to counter friendly versus hostile drones I just mentioned about, you should be able to say, okay, this is a friendly drone, this is not. And then so capability to understand the encrypted link, and then capability to have the system on auto response mode. That means I don't want somebody to intervene and then say, okay, so decide what action should be taken against this threat, because that means a laborious process onto the human efforts. So I should have a system which detects, categorizes, and then say, right, okay, so now this is the way, this is the nature of the threat, and this is the effective solution to address it, employ that solution, and then act on it. So then, yes, of course, either the object and power, so that also matters in terms of the detection. So if these are the current challenges, what we will have to understand is we have the future challenges. Okay, so what I mean to say is the threat, as Daljit Singh said, and then Dr. Vastuva said, this threat is not full today. So we have not seen it to its full potential. It is evolving now. Right now, it is evolving across the world, not only for India, but the entire world. It is new. They are trying to understand what are the new things that can come into, and whether my systems are capable of adapting those to those new threats that are likely to evolve in future, maybe down the line, next 1 year, next 2 years. So are we ready to do that? Are these systems be capable of having this kind of adaptability? Then yes. So today, if you see, not much, many of the airspace across the world have a dedicated flight management systems, or dedicated airspace management systems, especially for the drones. But the way the usability is increasing, so tomorrow, down the line, next 2 years, 3 years, there could be a wide, possibility of employing the drones, and then for using various operations. Could it be for transportation? Could it be for goods transport? Whatever it could be. So we see a lot of a lot of possibility of having this situation coming very close. In that case, the challenge for your anti-drone systems should be like capability to interrogate with them and decide whether this is rogue or not, and then act on it, which is going to be extremely critical, because you need to integrate your systems with all the established frameworks. For example, India is now coming out with the digital sky platform catering especially for the drones operation. So how do we integrate the anti-drone systems with the features and then methods of permissions, and then how do we still decide? So these are all the challenges that one has to address and then incorporate into the anti-drone solutions. Geography and circumstances, when it comes to this, Indian conditions have already been explained. So the cases of the incidents have been explained by Daljit Singh, so I will not cover them. So one aspect that what we need to understand as far as employing the anti-drone solution to India is we need to understand the border that we have. It's a vast border, 15,000 kilometers. If I have to, safeguard it inch by inch, okay, I will have to see what is the solution which can meet this challenge. And cost per kilometer has to be clearly thought about it. So there is a clear chance, or there is a clear requirement that, okay, we need to have a very, very cost-effective solutions in order to cover such a wide, space or wide border. Not only that, so our solution, our threat doesn't demand not only the solution at the border. So we need to see all the critical installations inside, okay, airports, air bases. So what is the solution which can cover all these aspects. So, when we are trying to come out with the solutions, we need to think about all these aspects. So the most important thing is like the involved stakeholders, how do we think and then come out at the policy level? Okay, what is Ministry of Defense is thinking, Home Affairs is thinking, and then aviation industries, civil aviation industries, ministry is thinking about. So what national security advisors are coming out. So the framework, the way that, the drone framework is coming out now. So we are in a far better situation, when compared to 2 years ago in terms of the drone framework. So we need to come out with the anti-drone framework also, which some efforts have already been initiated. Okay, so like BSF has given a clearance to counter anything which is at 1,000 feet or something like that, or these kind of regulations have started coming out. So then the clearances on offensive drones. So like that, so a wide policy in order to which situation, how to act has to be defined so that the security agencies are at free hand in order to use the systems. So when it comes to the usage perspective, the armed forces, inland security, industry security, and of course high net worth individuals. So all of them need different solutions, but there could be some commonality. Okay, so this has to be discussed widely, and then an appropriate framework has to come out. And of course, in this framework, what has to be done is the industry has to be widely involved, so that the solution that emerges meeting the Indian requirements will be able to serve the needs very effectively. Of course, these are the components of a typical counter-drone system. So all of you might be knowing, the users also might be knowing, many of the audience, you also have an idea. So different detection systems. So as a company, what we are doing is we are trying to work on all these, green zones, passive detection, visual tracking, active detection, soft kill, and some of the hard kill aspects. And of course, a data integration system is, data integration system is there. So most of you know about this. I'm not covering much. So, what works where has to be really understood. So acoustic is not much of a use at many places, but RF sensors, it has its own limitations. Its response is fast, and then you have good capability to swarm. But then, unfortunately, it doesn't work for a silent drone. So when I'm talking about a visual detection system, it's a bit slow. I can't use it really for detection. So yeah, it's a good tool for me to confirmation. So if I say that there's a drone in the direction, so I can have a very good confirmation, and then say that what I'm seeing is a drone or not. So this kind of applications, this is very good. And then when it comes to radar, yes, it can work up to a very long ranges. Its response is fast, and then it's good at swarm capability. But the problem is now I will relieve myself, or I will reveal myself, or if I'm trying to apply this at the installations which are in the urban area, the regulations, whether I can radiate or cannot radiate, what conditions that I have to follow, all these things have to be considered when I wanted to use these kind of systems. So now when I'm trying to apply this solution, so we need to really think of what is the asset that I'm trying to protect, or what is the area that I'm trying to protect. How do I define where should I start detecting it? How should I define where should I start acting on it? And what is my definitely no entry zone, like a protection zone. So these kind of markings have to be done by the users too, or this kind of thinking has to come out before this is the solution that I wanted to apply. So when I'm trying to use this system as a user, what kind of aspects that I have to consider. So I have to see where I'm trying to apply this solution. So what is the purpose? So am I trying to attack the drones with weapons, narcotics, or spy? Or am I going to attack the big vehicles? So at what distance I'm going to address or identify the threat? I have to identify the threat and then address it. So where am I? Am I at the border, or am I at the installation? Am I at the urban area? Am I sitting in a rural area, vegetation, hilly? So solution is not same for everything. So solution is different for each one of these conditions. I have to really think about it. Then is it a roof installation or a mobile installation? Can I go with jamming? Can I radiate? So all these aspects have to be thought about by the user. And then you say, so these are my conditions at which I have to operate the system. So these components of the system will meet my requirement. This doesn't meet my requirements. Okay. So then when it comes to a RF detection system, normally you will have an antenna array to receive, and then you will have a processing unit, and then you will have system to feed this data to a jammer and then an optical system. So this is typically how optical system to confirm that there is a drone. So this is how the typical combination of anti-drone systems work, and these are the specifications. I'm just keeping it so that somebody wants, they can go through. So when it comes to RF detection system, this is essentially depends on the bands or the interface between your controller to the drone. So what kind of communication that it implies. So this system has to be effectively able to address all the possible communication bands that the drones are going to employ, or all the future possible communication bands that can come in. So then the challenge is like future possible communication bands that can come into is largely mobiles. Okay, so then how do I distinguish between the normal mobile to a mobile communication that is happening on the drone is very, very important. So this is the challenge that these RF detection systems in future have to address. And then how do I present this situation? How do I confirm this? And then how do I say that this is drone is very, very important as far as these systems are concerned. And these are the frequency bands that they have to cover. And the critical issues, as to be addressed when somebody is trying to apply an RF solution is this: how fast I can detect this drone and declare that this as a drone, and what are the other details that I can talk about. This means I have to have RF signatures for hundreds and thousands of drones, categories of drones, and I should be able to match the pattern and then say this is the drone that I'm looking at. So can the drone fly at very low altitude be detected? So this is possible. So this is the issue to be addressed, because if I'm trying to protect a perimeter, let us say, somebody can just a few meters away from the perimeter can launch this. So you have a very, very small time, and this is flying at a very low altitude to detect and then still act on it. So does the system possess this kind of capabilities? And then how best this addresses the swarm when it comes to the RF detection? And one needs to understand while applying the drone, the solution, one needs to understand completely about these drones also. Okay, what kind of communication that they are, into, what kind of power levels that they are into. So this will give user on, when I say this is my specification of an anti-drone system, so these data will be able to make them understand whether this is going to work or not, or what I'm claiming is right or not. And then, understand, okay, so the kind of ranges and the calculations in terms of the ranges. Then when it comes to your detection and tracking, so I said this is largely applied as an assisting tool to confirm that whatever is being seen is the drone in most of the cases, whether our system or the systems worldwide the people are employing. So ranges are available, 2.5 to 3 kilometers, the ability to detect in day and night. That is very important because most of these narcotic and then other operations are being largely handled during the night. And of course, you need to have a very good data integration and then display system to provide a comprehensive picture to the user that, okay, what's happening right now. So the solution needs to have this kind of, provision. Then yes, once after detecting, the next question comes on jamming. So jamming, the jammer should have the capability to jam all the communication frequencies that the drones are likely to employ. Apart from that, to counter the autonomous drones, you need to have complete GNSS band frequencies capability to jam for various ranges. So that should be the function of the jammer, and the jammer has to get the frequencies right from your detection system, auto-tune them, and then work towards the direction in which this threat is there, and then ensure that the threat is nullified, and then it has to act continuously till the threat is nullified, because once you apply the jam, there are a lot of conditions in which the drone will get affected. So you need to address for each one of these conditions. Your solution has to be meeting all these possibilities of what a drone can do under the jamming, jamming conditions. These are some specifications on the frequencies that a typical jammer has to cover. When it comes to active detection, so there are wide bands in which the radars are being used in order to detect CX and Q bands. So what we are coming out with an X-band solution. Of course, various power levels, and then it has to be integrated with a proper other sensors. Then active detection when it comes to, so the only solution for silent drones. So low Earth is a problem, fiber body of the drones is a problem. So the solution has to effectively address all these aspects. Now, apart from that, so hard kill interfaces, like, the people are talking about interfacing with laser guns. Okay, what we are giving is we are coming out with a gun alignment system instead of a laser-based system. So you have to, the challenge with the hard kill systems is to have an extremely accurate pinpointing coordinates to be given to them. Then only I'll be able to address and then fire the threats effectively. So now, the conclusion is the threats are multifold, needs a deeper understanding. So it should have a open capability in terms of adapting future threats, future upcoming threats. So the focus on modularity and standardization is needed from the user's perspective. So regulators have to come out very fast so that the solutions can be employed, or the installations can start going into the industry. Okay, so there is a evolving need for the architecture to be open and then open for upgradations. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Dr. Babu. I'm just going to bring it back one moment. Okay. From our other panelists, we don't have any formal presentations there, but I will open it up to AVM Ashwani, Jacob Klain, and Group Captain Vikram Chauhan. Rahman, what would you like to do? Would you like to continue to hear from the panel individually?
Yeah, before we hand over to AVM, it could be an interactive session per se, but let AVM Nabh speak first. But before we hand over the mic to him, Dr. Nagendra, from the business perspective point of view, you are investing a lot of money and your time. What is the market perception in terms of size of the anti-drone technology in India and rest of the world? And what India can do for making world a peaceful state? Over to you. Just quick 2-3 bullet points.
I could see Indian market somewhere around few thousand crores in the next 4-5 years, because at the border the solution is a must. So today, if you ask me an approximate cost, maybe a crore or lesser than that for 2-3 kilometers of the border. So you can just calculate what we have. And then you have maybe 100-200 very, very critical installations inside India, which has to be, immediately or down the line next 3 years have to be covered. Talking about maybe, 5 to 10 crores for each of these installations. You can see this is the kind of, the Indian market itself. And it is ready now.
Sorry for interruption. Are you giving a guarantee with your technology that India may not have some attack on the refineries, what we had in some countries around us recently? Saudi Aramco, I'm talking of that.
Absolutely.
Are we in control of the technology to avoid any such Saudi Aramco type of accidents?
If you ask me right now, we are okay. As a company, we are 50% ready. So I would say in another 1 year, we will be 100% ready.
Okay. With that answer, which is hope for us, I hand over to Air Vice Marshal Ashwani. Your experiences, sir. We're keen to listen to you. You've been working with Bharat Electronics. What is your thought perception on this? What India should do next? Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris and Raman, and good afternoon to all the panelists and all the listeners out here. I think Dr. Nagendra has covered essentially everything, and the comments made by Marshal Daljit Singh were also encompassing most of the issues. What I would like to emphasize 2-3 points, and from there we can just talk about what the future of the anti-drone technology could hold. This is based on my experience being the member in various committees which are looking at acquisition of these systems. So what I found that some of the, not all, some of the people were not familiar with the landscape of regulatory framework that existed about a year back. As Nagendra said, that there are a lot of improvements and a lot of proactive policy decisions being given for operation of drones in the country. That includes the recent discussion on the the Civil Aviation Regulation 2.0, and it's likely to be issued very soon. And also the new UTM, that is the Unmanned Traffic Management System through DG Sky 2.0, which is likely to be out in phases, of course, by end of the year. The knowledge of all this is mandatory, I feel, so that we can progress to define our requirements of anti-drone systems, to be able to decide which is legitimate and which is illegitimate operation of drones. To my mind, that is a major area where the gaps exist, and there's a need to be, industry to be aware of that. I think Dr. Nagendra also mentioned that the guidelines for the drone operations, of course, as I mentioned, are available, but also for anti-drone guidelines have also been issued by MOCA in 2019, sometime in January, February. That was the National Counter-Rogue Drone Guidelines, which essentially the scope was to, recognize the multidimensionality of the issue, guidelines for assessing the drone threats, and awareness about the legitimacy of anti-drone technology in light of what is likely to come as the paperless, presenceless, and online UTM system, which will give clearances to all the drones operating in the country. So that being said, and a lot of development which has also gone in kind of color zoning the entire airspace of the country in red, green, and yellow. Red is, of course, no entry, which Dr. Nagendra covered. That includes all the critical airports, military bases, borders, and industrial vital areas and vital points of the country, which, as you rightly said, are more than 200, and they would need some kind of protection to all these from all these kind of rogue drones. Yellow, of course, is the area that we need to understand and be very clear how the drone corridors have been planned, for what all category of drones these corridors can be used, and what is the methodology of uploading the flight plan, uploading the details of the drone, and thereafter downloading also the whatever the path has been flown by the drone, so that it can be thrown up as a data to the AI systems to assess the predictability of the drone from the category of the drone, and the operators classification can also be made out of that. So as I said, the aim of DigiSky is quite clear. It will be paperless, seamless process of flight clearances with, of course, the PKI and certification agency and UUID functionalities made available through the appropriate APIs. What it needs is that the drone manufacturers need to keep in mind that what are the basic requirements that are going to be there. Out of the 40,000 odd drones which are existing in the country today, as against about 8 lakhs in the world over, which are maybe unrecognized or unregulated. Some of them are now getting regulated because of the opening of the portal by civil aviation. What all is required or in presently and in near future? That not only the RFID or the GSM SIMs, but the ADS-B out, as well as in future likelihood of incorporation of the SSR also in drones should be considered, so that the concept of NPNT can truly be enforced with, of course, the programmable registered flight module, which will have the capability of ensuring the all the regulations that we all talk about, ensuring that the geofencing is ensured and the dynamic remote rerouting is also possible, besides the drone's inherent capability of look for and avoid the obstruction, man-made or otherwise. So therefore, as Dr. Nagendra covered rightly, the user expectations from anti-drone systems are varied. Everybody does not need to need to have a full spectrum, full scale anti-drone capability. And these guidelines have been issued by Government of India as to what are the elements required for a full scale anti-drone capability, or a mid-segment capability, or the basic capabilities for an anti-drone system. What my request to the industry here is that when we are developing, as Dr. Nagendra said, he is 50%, in position to take on the full spectrum capabilities. All the elements of this capability, that is to detect, identify, deceive, and destroy thereafter, in my opinion, needs to be plug and play kind of system in open architecture, because what I have studied in the world rather, if I were to say there are more than 255 anti-drone systems coming out of 155 odd anti-drone companies, there are only about 80% are, or not even 80%, I would say total 80 are ones which have the capability of detecting most of the flying birds and identify to some extent. There are about 70 only which can carry out the deceive and destruction, and about 60 odd are there which have the both capabilities at one place. So that requires a lot of innovation, multi-sensor fusion, which is now possible with the AI thrown in, all the acoustic, RF, your data link, and electro-optical visual signals being incorporated or merged, and thereafter deciding on the course of action that needs to be taken. After detection and identification based on the AI-enabled matching of the library signature libraries that need to be created. So the challenges, to my mind, which exist are the performance, practicality, legality, and policy framework of anti-drone. And the future that I see for the anti-drone capability is the system should be capable of real-time RF monitoring, not only of the designated known bands of GSM or Wi-Fi 2.4, 5.8, and things like that, because it is very easy to convert a commercial drone into a rogue drone by just changing your RF, by just changing your guidance, and thereafter being sitting snug, that no other person can pick me up. But so therefore, the anti-drone should scan from 30 kilohertz up to maybe 30 or 40 gigahertz. That is the range that may be utilized. The point that I covered, scalability of the system in architecture to address security of the vital points to the broad border areas and coastline, and also interoperability, the point which I covered. And the last point which I would like to make, these anti-drone systems should also, and this is what has been talked about, also be integratable with the UTM system that is being proposed by MOCA, because you see, if you are giving the authority and not only the UTM, the other surveillance systems, the give and take, the data sharing with the other surveillance system will also be required to cater for the true operational ability of this anti-drone system. I think due to constraint of time, I will stop here because most of the things have already been touched upon by Marshal, Daljit, and Dr. Nagendra. Thank you very much, Chris and Raman, for this opportunity. If there be any questions about the regulatory frameworks or what I have said, I'll be happy to take on the questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, AVM Ashwani.
With your permission, Chris, I have got a burning question, if you don't permit me.
No worries. And just noting, we do have a slight your image is frozen there, AVM, but all good. We can hear you fine.
I have a short question for the panelists. starting with my friend Nagendra and AVM and Air Marshal. See, in the talk by AVM Ashwani, he talked about when we do the flight planning and registering of the flight plan and the, whatever drones. The famous attack in USA, the 9/11, was by aircraft which were already having the flight plan by the certified pilots. If tomorrow we have a certified pilot, of a drone pilot, who's filing a flight plan and repeats what happened in USA in the 9/11, anywhere else in the world or in India, what methods we have today to have avoidance or stopping of repeat of 9/11 by use of drones. There will be a drone which is certified, imported, legalized, registered with civil aviation, but now when the flight plan is done, it is going to fly path. How do we control it? Anyone can take this?
Yeah, Raman, I will take it on.
Yeah.
You see, the point which I touched upon, but I did not elaborate, is the under the regulations of DigiSky, what is going to be a mandatory requirement to enforce NPNT is a registered flight module with a UIN number. This flight module is like your flight data recorder, you can say, with the full ability that in case the drone is made to deviate from the planned route, the geofencing ability of the drone through this RFM module will obviously either make the drone to return or to make him sit wherever it is. So there is adequate kind of protections planned in this sky through this UTM and the RFM modules. So of course, but still the point is valid. There needs to be certain other methodology also. That is the point I said, that the all the anti-drone systems should be pluggable even with the other surveillance systems, and only then the decision to whether shoot down or deceive or make it divert from its planned path should be taken, and it's not free for all for anti-drone systems flying in each industrial area or wherever they want to.
Thank you, sir. We now fly down straight to Tel Aviv to our friend calling from Israel, Mr. Jacob Klain. India is waiting to listen from Israel. Over to you.
Okay, I'll start from the end. Let's say first of most of the let's say critical aspects of using the drones and the anti-drones. But what I want to say, and I'm taking the let's say the information from our life. These days, the Israeli Defense Forces are conducting, for example, a big competition on the next generation drone. And what is interesting that not only the defense companies are part of this competition, also the private industry. That's a very important point I want to emphasize from the Indian side. The private companies are coming with a lot of new ideas that probably the old, let's say, big defense companies maybe cannot supply. And this is something that the integration will be done by the idea. What I want to say that we are talking about the defense. So then the next battlefield will be conducted by autonomous, let's say, most of the time, autonomous systems. And we're talking about the drone can be a system that is part of a system of systems, actually, and is going to have a very important role in the future, in the near future. Talking about the civil application, there are a lot of civil applications that can be used and can be, of course, applied. And in this case, because we are talking also about urban environment, we need to think about not killing, let's say, solutions. We need something that is can be used, like for example, using the cyber capability in order to take control of civil, let's say, drone. We have to think in this way that if you want to have security on a, let's say, stadium or any other open, let's say, facility with a lot of people inside, you cannot use laser in order to destroy. So you need something else. So that's another way how to think. And we missed today a very interesting, let's say, presentation that the guy who was supposed to come join us could give you a good overview of this kind of quiet solution. Talking and again, I want to say that the next, let's say, battlefield or the modern battlefield will have to keep inside UAVs and drones as part of the system of systems, and this is something that's very important. One more thing. I think that in India, because I know a little bit, it is very important not to have the platform. It's very important to have the technology in hand and to integrate. The main idea is how to integrate and to how to do the best solution. And of course, because today we are talking about a multi-dimensional battlefield, whatever, so you need to collect the data in a very short time and to shorten the time from the sensor to the shooter. I don't want to speak too much because I don't have enough time, but I could explain some other aspects of this.
Thank you very much. Sorry, Raman, just 1 second.
Raman sir, you are on mute, I think.
Thank you, Raman.
I'm maintaining the self-discipline. Thank you, Nagendra. From Israel back to Australia. Australia, what is the experience of drones and anti-drones? Before you come back to Vikram Chauhan.
Yeah, look, drones are actively being used here now, particularly during COVID-19 for border patrols between New South Wales and Victoria. Just today, or the last couple of days, the Surf Lifesaving Australia is now using drones and machine learning to monitor the beaches. So the drone takes an image across the beach, an aerial image, and then machine learning will then map out how many people are on the beach and making sure that they're social distancing as well. And obviously we're also using drones in fire detection and fire monitoring in bushfires. So from a civil defence, civil applications, police are using them, safety, beach, water, maritime are using them, and then obviously for environmental monitoring as well. In terms of defence, they're obviously, we mentioned Drone Shield is an Australian listed company. They're working with the US Department of Defence on their anti-drone technology, and that technology has been deals are done in the Middle East with Drone Shield as well. So predominantly around sort of prisons and the like, also looking at anti-drone technology. There's been cases of contraband being delivered into prisons by drones as well. So drones, we've been monitoring drones for some time in the media field, and there's always been a lot of interest in the technology. Just recently, I think the real threat coming through, and then also the military applications, are the drone swarms. And we covered this, I think, a couple of weeks ago, where they're now developing in Australian Defence using drone swarms and maritime drones for anti-mining or mine detection as well. So there's basically, as you gents are aware, the applications of drones is extremely broad in all sectors, really. I think the real challenge is the anti-drone technology, because you're going to have legitimate drones, operational drones in an airspace, and then you've got to be monitoring their activity as well as potential sort of counter drones coming into that airspace as well. It's an extremely challenging particular area. We haven't not heard from Vikram Chauhan, and we do have some questions from the audience. I think we've covered most of the things. Maybe if we can cover off a couple of questions on Let me just go up to one of the first ones. Was for a drone coming from across the border, the detection ranges of 3 to 5 kilometres are too low for an effective kill. A weaponized drone flies at very high altitude and range and are controlled from command centres far away. Where are the... Hang on, I can't read the rest of the question, but where are the anti-drone technologies for that type of military weaponized drone across the border? What type of technologies are detecting that?
Can I answer this?
Yes, and then we'll hear from Vikram. Yeah.
The drone which has to do this kind of job, maybe firing from 5 kilometers or something like that, it has to do. It has to be extremely, big, and it has to have that kind of endurance. Now, the challenge of detection of the drone is directly proportional to its size, or rather inversely proportional, I would say. The smaller the size, the challenges are higher. Okay. So the moment I talk about a bigger drone, so why most of the manufacturers talk about 3 kilometers, 5 kilometers as the range is because you talk about a quadcopter to be detected. So when I wanted to do that, so I have to offset. So for these kind of bigger drones, they will have large aperture, either radar or we presume that they will have a good communication system, so which can radiate proper energy, so that it is possible to detect them even at 10 kilometers or beyond. That's possible. So when you have such a big system, yes, of course, it will be able to detect, and then we will be able to neutralize them.
Okay, and one other...
Can I give a more elaborate on whatever?
Yes, sir, please.
Dr. Chris, when we talk of tackling the hostile threat, it is not in different classes. We have integrated air defense systems all over the world, which is supposed to tackle even the ballistic missile systems, aeroplanes. Even now, there are systems which are capable of even neutralizing the terminal weapons, that is cruise missiles, guided bombs, and everything else. And this system has to be seamless. You can't say that anti-drone will only tackle anti-drone. And you can't say that if there is a threat which is coming at 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers at height, that only anti-drone system has to tackle that. Normal, conventional, multi-layered air defense system would be able to tackle that. If that is not able to tackle, then we get into the inner ring. Closing weapon systems come in, anti-drone systems come in, and that is how seamlessly all kinds of threat which is hostile is tackled. Not by one system, but by multiple layers of systems. I hope I have clarified the issue.
I think so, considering, the question was related to border security too. So those systems will be monitoring borders quite heavily. Raman, we haven't heard from Vikram Chauhan, who's been sitting there patiently. So, Vikram, I think we've covered a lot of areas, but certainly maybe your background and some of the points that you'd like to raise.
Thank you so much. I'm very happy to be here, and one advantage of being the last speaker is that you don't need to talk much. And, of course, the Marshal and the other panelists have already covered what is the various aspects of the security, the anti-drone technology and all. I just want to put out a few points regarding the operator. In the entire process of being regulated, we have forgotten what the operator.
Vikram, just a moment. You're very difficult to hear. Have you got? That might be better. Go.
Is this any better, sir?
That's much better. Thank you.
Much better.
I'll hold the mic a little. The little issue with my headset, and I would just like to pull out 2 points which probably need a little more attention whenever we are deciding anything to do with drones and the implement any part of the world. The industry is on a We all know what the high-end drones, the military applications, the weaponized versions of the drones can do. But the threat, like Raman sir brought out a little earlier, will be from that rogue drone which has been brought in by enthusiasts to fly around. He slaps on a little bit of plastic explosive, flies. There is nothing which will stop him. And the reason being is that all our regulations, just for them one by one. It took me a minute or so. Got Gazette notification for the unmanned aircraft system rules, which is like he has got a civil aviation requirement on that. The Apex Authority in 2018 telling you how to use your drones. We got training circulars, we got guidance manual from the DGCA, and even the Bureau of Civil Security with their own guidelines. Now all these are guides, and they lay down various rules and regulations how to classify a unique identification number, the operator's approval for the operator. Then you need the pilot to be trained. Finally, you end up having the dealer, the porter, or the trader to be approved. All this goes well, but and over and above, we got this specific requirement in India of a NPNT, a no permission, no takeoff policy, where unless you get the approval over an online platform called the Digital Sky, you cannot even operate the drone. Now, all this would have been very nice if we had the basic system already in place and we went up gradually. But it's worked from the bottom upwards. What has happened is that we have set up the Digital Sky, which is manned by people who are not domain experts. It is more like a call center, and it is easier to get a visa in India today to go to the US than to get approval from Digital Sky. So the grey market is flourishing in India. We have over 6 lakh plus drones which have already been brought in and not even known to the authorities. So somewhere we need to bridge this, and what I feel that firstly we need to simplify the rules. Focus on the user and who are the users. There are different users. There's for recreation and there's for high-end technology users. We need to focus and differentiate between the two and then regulate the usage of drones accordingly. We need to train the drone operators before we let them go out and operate a drone in the sky. And training right now is limited to only 1 or 2 places where officially training can be given, and everybody else is doing it on the sidelines without having the approvals. This is an issue which needs to be looked at first, and then only you can go ahead and say that, yes, I have an ecosystem and an environment where I can control my drones. Equally important is we have to distinguish between who are manufacturing the drones in India and what are the high-end technologies used. Between the motor, the batteries, and the controller is where you control the drone. If these are regulated and known, if they are traceable, we have no other issue. Because today, you cannot build a drone in your backyard or in your garage unless you have one of these or all of these 3 things available to you. Through illegal imports and through the grey market, a lot of equipment is available in India. Fortunately, in the past few days, our imports from specific countries has reduced. Even NPNT is something which is nothing more than geofencing. Like AVM Nabh brought out, geofencing has been renamed as NPNT just for the sake of making it India unique or India specific. Even a car GPS today can be used for geofencing or be capable of geofencing. So it is not a big deal, but it has to be built into the drone. Some other panelists have already spoken on the fact that yes, we can have all these things available and traceable. But right now, who will look at it? The borders are secure. Air Marshal Daljit Singh brought out that the secure installations, the military installations will all have this kind of layered security, right, from terminal weapons to intercontinental missiles. But what happens if you are trying to attack a political party, a political office, a building, a small installation which is in the middle of nowhere, which is related to the local security, which is anti-terrorist security. All these things will only be controllable and detectable if we keep a tab on the technologies going into manufacturing a drone, whether it is in a factory or in a garage. And the three things we need to look at is the motors, the batteries, and the control system, the software and the hardware within these. And these are not being regulated right now. All we are worrying about is the fact that if somebody wants to fly, he has to go through a plethora of regulations, fill a few forms, wait for his turn to come and get a permission to fly. I think we are barking up the wrong tree, and this is something which we need to work on and have a better. And this can only be possible if drone operators are allowed to make their own federations, come out with the bottlenecks, solutions proposed to the regulators, and Digital Sky should be made unique and central to this entire activity. And that can only be done if drone domain experts, people who are trained in drone operations and regulations, manufacture, are part of Digital Sky, not just a set of call center experts who will answer your queries by noting it down, going to somebody, getting an answer, and coming back to you. So I think that is all I want to say. Everything else probably has been already covered. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will mention we do have regulation here in Australia, the Civil Aviation Safety Authority, CASA, and you also have to be a certified drone operator with training for any drone of 2 kg and above. So anything under that, you're fine. There's also rules. You're not allowed to fly drones within 30 meters of populated areas and those types of things, and obviously height variations. I'm imagining India has a regulation framework for drones, or commercial drone operations. There's a regulation framework.
Yes.
Like in all cases, in India, we have taken over regulations from all other countries in the world, put them together, and added a few of our own.
Yeah, Australia, we do the same thing here. Don't worry about that. So, look, on that particular note, there was one other question I think we cover off, just so we can at least include the audience. Just slightly more on integration technology. It was a particular question for you, Jacob, was a little bit more on integration tech. Anything you can potentially add on how systems are integrated and maybe the key challenges in integration?
Actually, the main idea is to collect in real time a lot of information from different sensors or whatever. So you need to deal with the big data. And because I said that we are talking about autonomous systems, we need also to increase our capabilities in artificial intelligence. So all these systems connected together, the big data that has to be analyzed in real time, and to send the right decision, or to make the right decision in real time. So this is one of the main concerns, how to build up a centralized mission management intelligence hub. So this is the main challenge, and controlling each of the technologies is okay, and then to make the integration. That's one of the maybe strengths in our country, that we are working on the centralization of this kind of hubs in order to have control in real time about any threat around our small country.
Thank you very much. And drones definitely do provide that. I think with video analytics coming in as well, the power of video and what drones just adds a whole layer of capability to what drones can do. Rahman, I think on that note, we've been going for about 90 minutes. We might close it off now. Does any of the panel wish to make any closing comments before we close off? No, that sounds good.
I would like to make 2-3 points.
Go, Raman.
First of all, thank you to all the panelists, all the visitors. For the sake of the audience, if you have any bright ideas, our association also arranges investments on the bright ideas, and drone is one area where we are investing in some startup companies also. What we covered today was technology, regulation, anti-technology, the syllabi, the training, certification. I would like to arrange, with the help of the panelists and audience questions, a 2-page white paper to the government on what is the current status of the drone and anti-drone, what India needs to do further. As per Dr. Nagendra, we are only 50% ready for the kind of threats we have got. So what is the short gap of this? What is the current scenario of drone testing? There is a Government of India policy on drone testing also. There are some defense parks, especially earmarked for drone testing also. So we need to work out a white paper as to what needs to be done. A lot of things have been done with Ministry of Civil Aviation and all the stakeholders. My idea is to prepare what we can do next so that the 50% gap which we have been taught today should become close to 99.99%. With that note, over to you, Chris.
Thank you very much. And on that particular note, I would definitely like to thank all of our panel as well. We've heard from Dr. Vastuva as his opening comments, and we did lose him at some point, but thank you, Dr. Vastuva, for your comments. And our panel today was Air Marshal Daljit Singh, Dr. Nagendra Babu Samineni, Air Vice Marshal Ashwani Kumar Nabh, I'm trying to with your names, Jacob Klain, thank you very much from Israel as well, and Group Captain Vikram Chauhan, thank you so much for your insights today. I think we pretty much covered off every aspect of drone, obviously verbally, and thank you to Nagendra also for your presentation, going through some of the tech also. Just to finalise off as we normally do, I'd like to cover, Raman, I think something I was thinking about during this session today was robotics and robots, I think is another area that will sit alongside drones also. And next week we're going to cover off on cybersecurity, and then we'll be covering off on number 10. But if any of the audience, with robotics as well, please let us know. So thank you very much. Thank you to our co-host Raman Sapori in Delhi, to our panel once again. And on that note, the sessions are available on My Security TV. We were live on YouTube, but the sessions tend to be downloaded on demand following these. So thank you very much for your time today, and we'll see you next Tuesday at the same time, 11:30 Indian time, 4 o'clock Australian Eastern Standard Time. Namaste.
Thank you.
Thank you
very
Thank
much.
you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.